Hello, and thank you for listening to Canada Today, part of the Canadianist podcast series. I'm Christopher M. Michaud. Over the next 5 Thursdays, here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to take a structured, serious look at Canada as it actually stands today. Each Thursday for the next 5 weeks, we'll tackle one major pillar of national strength and opportunity. Now, just to be clear, we're still releasing a new podcast episode every single day. That doesn't change. The rest of the week stays in our regular format, covering current events, commentary, interviews, and analysis. But Thursdays are going to be different. Thursdays will be our deeper, long-form examination of where Canada is and where it could go. And we're starting with what I believe is one of the core truths about this country. Canada isn't a small marginal player in the global system. We're one of the most resource-endowed, stable democracies on Earth. The question isn't whether we have strength. The question is whether we recognize it and organize ourselves accordingly. Today's focus is Canada as a resource superpower in energy and materials. When people hear the word resources, the conversation usually collapses into argument. Oil versus climate, mining versus environment, development versus preservation. Those debates matter, but before we argue about how to manage something, we should understand the scale of what we're managing. Canada has the third largest proven oil reserves in the world. Third, behind Venezuela and Saudi Arabia, the majority of those reserves are in Alberta's oil sands, representing more than 160 billion barrels of recoverable crude under current technology and pricing conditions. That's not speculation. That's documented reality. To put that into perspective, the United States, the largest economy in the world, holds significantly smaller proven reserves than Canada. Kuwait, long considered an energy heavyweight, holds less. Yet, we rarely speak of ourselves as an energy power. Then there's natural gas. Canada ranks among the top global producers, with tens of trillions of cubic feet in proven reserves. Natural gas remains central to electricity production, heating, fertilizer manufacturing, and industrial processes worldwide. Even as countries transition toward lower carbon systems, natural gas continues to stabilize energy grids that can't yet rely entirely on intermittent sources like wind and solar. Add uranium to the picture. Canada is one of the world's leading producers of uranium, the fuel that powers nuclear reactors. As nations reconsider nuclear energy for its reliability and low emissions profile, our role becomes even more strategically important. But energy is only half the story. The 21st century economy runs on minerals most people never see. Electric vehicles require lithium, nickel, cobalt, and graphite. Wind turbines depend on rare earth elements. Solar panels require specialized materials. The electrification of modern industry depends on copper. Fertilizer production depends on potash. We've got substantial reserves of many of these materials. Nickel in Ontario and Quebec. Lithium deposits across several provinces. Cobalt, graphite, copper, potash, rare earth elements. These aren't niche commodities. They're foundational inputs for the global economy now taking shape. In other words, Canada isn't simply an oil country. We're a diversified resource nation with assets that touch nearly every major industrial transformation underway in the world today. Now zoom out even further. We're living through a period of global realignment. Supply chains are being reconsidered. Energy security has become a geopolitical priority. Democracies are actively looking for reliable partners for critical materials. The United States is trying to reduce dependence on unstable or adversarial suppliers. Europe's diversifying its energy sources. Asia's accelerating electrification and manufacturing expansion. In that environment, Canada's profile changes. We're a G7 democracy operating under rule of law. We've got transparent financial markets. We have environmental oversight frameworks that are stronger than many resource-producing jurisdictions. We share a border with the United States. We've got coastlines on 3 oceans. We're embedded in global trade agreements. That combination is rare. There are countries with resources but unstable governments. countries with stability but limited resources, countries with production capacity but weak institutions. Canada sits at the intersection of scale, stability, and access. That's what makes the term resource superpower meaningful. But having resources isn't the same as exercising power. Power comes from how those resources are developed, transported, processed, and integrated into global markets. It comes from regulatory certainty. It comes from infrastructure that connects producers to ports and customers. It comes from meaningful partnerships with indigenous communities built on respect and shared prosperity. It comes from balancing environmental stewardship with economic realism. And here's where we face our strategic test. Our debates are often fragmented. Provinces move at different speeds. Regulatory processes can stretch for years. Political cycles introduce uncertainty into long-term investment decisions. Capital's mobile. If it doesn't find clarity in Canada, it goes elsewhere. Global demand for energy and materials isn't going to pause while we deliberate indefinitely. That doesn't mean rushing recklessly. It means recognizing that indecision carries its own consequences. A resource superpower can't afford strategic paralysis. There's also the question of value. If we extract minerals and ship them abroad in raw form, we capture one layer of economic benefit. If we refine those materials, manufacture components, and build supply chains domestically, we capture far more. The higher up the value chain we move, the greater the employment, innovation, and long-term fiscal strength. This isn't about ideology, it's about economic arithmetic. Resources generate revenue. Revenue underwrites public services. It funds infrastructure, healthcare, education, and national defense. It provides leverage in trade negotiations. It strengthens sovereignty. Energy security is national security. Mineral security is industrial security. If Canada positions itself thoughtfully, we become indispensable to allies. And indispensability translates into influence. Influence translates into resilience. And that brings us back to the core truth that Canada isn't peripheral. We're not small in the ways that matter most in this century. We're land-rich, resource-rich, institutionally stable, and geographically advantaged. At a time when the world's anxious about energy, materials, and supply chains, we possess exactly what the global system is seeking. The opportunity's there. The decision is whether we align policy, infrastructure, environmental responsibility, and national ambition in a coherent direction. Because superpower status isn't declared, it's exercised. Before we go, I'll leave you with this. Canada isn't short on assets. We're not short on intelligence. We're not short on capability. What we sometimes lack is confidence in ourselves and clarity about what we actually are. If this country is going to move forward in a serious way, it starts with honest conversations like this one. Not slogans, not outrage, not endless left versus right theater. Just a clear-eyed look at our strengths and the responsibility that comes with them. Remember, we release a new episode every day here on The Canadianist. Thursdays will be our in-depth edition in this 5-part series. The rest of the week, we stay in our regular format, keeping up with what's happening across the country. If this conversation resonated with you, stay connected. Follow the reporting at thecanadianist.news. Take a look at what we're building at uccparty.ca. Read it carefully. Think about it critically. That's the point. This series is about taking Canada seriously again. I'm Christopher M. Michaud. Thank you for spending your time with me today. I genuinely appreciate it, and I'll see you next Thursday for episode 2.